This is the Tapped In Podcast, the podcast for beverage distributors that want to empower their sales team to drive business results. Listen up and welcome back to another episode of the Tapped In Sales Podcast, your podcast for beer distributors by beer distributors. I'm your moderator for today, Bud, here with Moneyball Ross and Data Mike. Boys, we are going to get into a lot of stuff today. We're going to talk. We have some education around some real topics that we want to talk about in the beer and in the sales team around death by 1,000 cuts and what is like killing motivation potentially. And there's some challenges out in the market with sales and some sad panda action. But before we get there, Ross, you wanted to kind of bring it high level and talk about the economic situation and the jobs report, which may be driving some of the challenges and the trends, the attitude, because some of this is like consumer sentiment as well, or just people, human sentiment, and how the economy might be feeling for certain folks, right, Ross? And you kind of want to double click into that and poke at that a little bit too, right?
Yeah, I think we don't spend very much time talking about, macroeconomic as much on this pod, but I think it's really intersects in a couple interesting ways for this week, and I think for the space going forward. So, one is I think that Joe Sixpack sniffed out the issue in the jobs market and the economy in general faster than the Fed did. I mean, maybe that's not a surprise to some people. And I think that the jobs data was the canary in the coal mine this week. So for anybody that didn't know, and this is actually going to come out a little later, so I think we're going to get some inflation data after this recording. But essentially what it says is that we've revised the job numbers down over 900,000. And that period kind of spans part of Biden's administration and into Trump's. And I think what it essentially shows is the job market was weak, if not recessionary. And that entire time, the Fed's been out saying that the job market's strong. We're going to hold tight on interest rates. The focus is inflation. So again, I don't know what the inflation numbers are going to show in the next week or so. So again, we'll find out here after this recording. But I think the jobs numbers are more important now because the Fed has those dual mandates around full employment and inflation or stability of the monetary system. So I think the jobs data will be the driver going forward, and into the 17th, we're probably going to see some cuts. But I think what's important here is, again, twofold. One is I think that the beer market sniffed this out. We've been very bearish about the beer alcohol space over the last 6-12 months.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, I think our industry has sniffed something out earlier than I think the overall economy really understood. And again, it's kind of a weird one because stocks are at all-time highs, and on the surface it looks like everything's good, but I think underneath it in the jobs market things are less good. So I do have a graph I want to pull up. And again, I don't want to be Dr. Doom here, but I think this is important for us to look at because this is important. Because I hear a lot of people cheerleading, oh, thank God the Fed's finally going to cut interest rates. And on one hand, I think that's a sigh of relief. And I think people that tend to be on the right are saying, hey, Trump's been right all along. Okay, great. But I think now that the cutting is going to start, I think it's important to look back at prior cycles and when cutting started and what happened next.
Yeah.
So what Bud's got up here is a history of rate cut cycles. And this is actually from the Federal Reserve Open Market Committee data set. And then these gray bars are the recessions. So those are the recessions, and those get backdated, right? So recessions aren't really officially understood to be real until I think 2 quarters of negative GDP.
2 quarters in. Yeah.
So this is often after the fact. So we find out we're in a recession after the fact. In fact, we could be in one right now. We wouldn't know it until they do the revisions on the data. But essentially what this shows, and let's go back to the most recent one, you go back to the pandemic, and you can see the rate cut cycle started significantly before the actual recession. And you go back to the great financial crisis, the same thing. Interest rates were held flat. And that was under Bernanke, I believe. So Fed rates were held flat for a significant number of quarters. And then they started cutting. And the recession basically started significantly after the cuts. In fact, wasn't declared until the rate, 3/4 of the way in through the cuts. And I think that one was very measured quarter point cuts. And if you go back to the prior one, which was the .com, again, they were cutting. That was Greenspan. He was cutting prior to the recession as well. Then you go back to what is it, 19, what is it, 19, early, late 90s?
92. Yeah.
Yeah, so that one, you can see it again. The cuts were way ahead of the recession. In fact, the cuts had happened, and then they leveled off. Then the recession started, and then they started really cutting. It's only when you get back to really historical data like the 50s and 60s that you'll see a couple examples where that's not necessarily the case. But even the ones in early or so late 50s, late 60s, all of them, the cut cycles predated the recession. So all this to say that, yes, I think that there's a lot of optimism around the fact that interest rates will finally go down. I think if you're looking to buy a house, if you're looking to refinance, I think this is welcome news that interest rates are going to go down. But we have to be cognizant of the fact that every rate cycle cut has predated a recession. And I think our industry has sniffed this out. So again, I think as we think about employment, I can say that this industry that we're in is a good place to be, to hide out during a recession, right? I wouldn't say it's counter-cyclical, but it tends to be more resilient in a deeper recession. I think we saw that in 07, 08, where most people's industries were hit really hard, but our industry, for the most part, kind of just chugged along. And I think even during COVID, I think we got upset more because there was the whole on-premise situation in our industry. But traditionally, in a traditional, I would say, credit-driven recession, our industry tends to hold up better. So this is not a good time to move industries. So if you're listening and you're on the sales side, I think now's a good time to keep your job.
Lean into the keeping your job.
I think this is a good time to lean into keeping your job. Again, I don't know, but I mean, and if you ask me, not financial advice, but I suspect the Fed's going to try to move ahead quickly on this if they start to smell a recession. I think they're behind the curve. I think everybody acknowledges that now. Maybe not everybody, but and I think the Fed doesn't want to be behind the curve. So I think if they move, they're going to move quick. So if we do see a recession, it'll probably be shallow, and then we'll probably see a crack up boom, i.e. we'll see asset prices kind of zoom away on us again. But anyway, that's something I wanted to bring up and bring into the conversation, because we've been talking about the soft sales and the soft numbers again and again. I saw some reporting around the Twisted Tea numbers not being good either. So I think this is starting to bring it home for everybody else in the economy, whether you're in the financial sector, et cetera, et cetera. So I hate to say that we're a leading indicator, but and I need to do some more research on that and look back in time and see if traditionally that alcohol sales do predate the beginning of the cutting cycle.
No, traditionally, alcohol is very discretionary as part of a consumer packaged good business. That's some of the reporting we talked about, or we were going to talk about as well too. It's very connected to discretionary spending. And when things get tight with Joe Sixpack, to use your terminology, Ross, or if you are a young drinker or a young consumer and you're saving for something because you have assets prices moving away from you or zooming away from you, you would like to buy a house, and you are broke or have student loans or aren't doing as economically as well as you want to be as a Gen Zer, you probably aren't going to be too far above and beyond and doing discretionary spending because you'd like to move on with your life, buy a home, get married, all those things, but you haven't been able to do that yet economically. So those are other underpinning challenges around this. What I find interesting about this chart academically, Ross, looking at it, if you go back to the older stuff in the 50s and 60s, you can see that the rate cuts lined up with the economic data of actual declining GDP more closely. And as we have moved along to the 80s and 90s, you can see it's predating it more and more and more. That's a nature of that. We have more data and we're using faster leading indicator resources than what we ever have before to set these rates. And we might know about things happening faster than what we would have known, because pace of information and speed of change, availability of data is only accelerated over the last 75 years. So I think that's an element that's playing into this and why we're getting ahead of it more often than we're not.
Yeah, I
too.
mean, I would argue that the Fed's data models are completely ruined and wrecked. I mean, they're behind the curve, and they're not using available more real-time data that we have. I mean, why aren't we using Zillow data for housing data? I mean, why are we using rent equivalent rents? I mean, they're literally calling people up and saying, "Hey, if you were selling your house, which I know you're not, what do you think you would sell it for? Or what do you think you'd rent it for?" I mean, it's the dumbest. The way we're doing things, and the fact that we had a 900,000 job revision going back to what, 24, middle of 20, or like spring of 24, that's insane. And last year we had an 800,000 one. I mean, it's
a million people.
And the Fed's made an entire, almost a 3/4 of policy, decisions based on a good job market, only to find out that it's not. And then let's not even talk about transitory inflation. I mean, that's one of the most ridiculous comments. So, I mean, I agree with you, Bud, but I think that it also shows what's happening right now in real time, shows us that, again, going back to data, and we always talk about data recency and get it as real time as you possibly can in our business. And I think, again, the Fed should be using more real time data. I think they're behind the curve.
They were behind the curve on the way in with transitory inflation. Yeah. And it's like no surprise that they are behind the curve on the way back out as well, too. So that's it doesn't surprise me one bit. And if you have that job revision of 900,000 people, there's like 10 cities that have more than 1 million people in it. Like it's huge. It's a huge city number. Of just like, poof, gone out of the job market as well.
I had somebody analogize. I heard somebody analogize that they're playing, they're bowling with like bumpers, those bumpers, bouncing from side to side.
The best way to bowl.
The only way to bowl.
Is it called cosmic bowling? Is that what it's called?
Well, that's the black light bowling with all the cool kids, and you only do that because it costs more money when you're not in a recession. But if you just want to be able to like bowl and not be a loser, you throw the bumpers up because you want to look cool, but you still want to throw a good number up.
Or if you bowl like me, you have to put the bumpers up.
That too.
I will say this though. I mean, I watched it very closely in 07, 08, and the tendency was that yes, people. I would say that the middle pack of profitable items kind of hurt, and then the bottom end increased, and the high end didn't really get touched. It was an interesting because I was more on the wine and spirit side, but I did see alcohol consumption continued. I mean, I think it's one of those things where yes, you say it's discretionary, but I don't know. I think for a lot of people, it's medicine.
It's discretionary. It's discretionary in nature, but it is also a cheap luxury at the same time as well. That's fair. There is, so it's a balancing act between the two. What I noticed, because we weren't working together back in 07 and 08 and 09, but what I noticed was it has always stuck with me is the pack size shift.
That was
where our largest packages were predating 06 and 07 were suitcases and 30 packs, and they migrated after 08 to 15 packs, 12 packs in a lot of places, and single serves as well. And then it became, what was the nature of that recession was it was credit availability, right? Nobody had credit, and we pulled back credit in a big way. So that tells me Joe Sixpack was going to the C-store or the gas station, and they were using a credit card in 06 and 07, and they were using cash in their pocket in 08 and 09 and beyond. It was, I have $50. I have $40, I have $30, whatever it is. How am I going to spend it? And I'm not going to spend it on a 30 pack of beer. I'm going to buy an 18 pack or a 12 pack or a 15 pack or 3 singles of 25 or 24 ounce cans. I'm going to get my pack of smokes, and I'm going to get gas, whatever kind of minimum viable gas I need to put in my truck today. And then I'll come back in 3 days and do it all over again.
And again, this is a great industry because it's exactly what you said. And I was looking at a graph this morning. Lumber prices are crashing. So, I mean, this is a great time if you're on the beer distributor side, you're thinking about CapEx, this is the time. I mean, last episode, we were just talking about steel prices.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to be too far behind lumber.
Probably not. No. Nope. So summary is that challenging times might be related to our industry. We could be seeing the forest through the trees. We could be focusing on leading indicators that where I do think beverage alcohol has a leading indicator nature of it as well. I think there's some factual relevance to that. You're way more capable, Ross, of doing the statistical analysis and seeing if that is the case and be more focus on it. And there might be solid research out there we haven't looked at yet either.
Well, I think if this plays out this way, then I think I need to step away and I need to do some research and go back into the numbers and take a look at this.
Yep.
Because I think there might be some correlation here.
Mike, are you in the field? You're in the field this week. Have you noticed anything that vibes with you on this front as well?
Not too much here where I'm at. I'm in Central Florida, and they're the particular place that I'm in right now. They're gaining population, so it's really hard to tell what the impact of the economy is doing when population is growing around here. But so no, I haven't really noticed any of that.
It's a big deal. Net migration, is something that can actually wipe out these kinds of challenges as well in short order, but they magnify it in communities that have, flat to declining population or zero net migration.
Absolutely.
They become that was Michigan, ground zero, the only state from 2000 to 2010 that lost census. And it lost population through the census. And
I think they're all moving here. Every corner has a new housing development going up.
Anywhere in the Southeast and through really the most popular net migration area right now is Texas, Florida still, and then that southern Appalachian mountain region as well. And there's a lot of folks that are actually migrating to Florida, and then there's a lot of folks that are actually migrating back out of Florida because they've been priced out of the market, can't get insurance, their house has been destroyed a couple of times from hurricanes. They're like, peace out, Audi 5000, and they're migrating to a northern part of the state or that southern Appalachian
and they have a name for it, don't they? Halfback.
Where does that come from?
What?
So they're halfway back. They move from New Jersey.
Did you just make that up, Ross?
No. Somebody check me in the comments if that's a real thing.
Oh, I love it. They're halfback. That is good shit. Well, Professor Ross, thanks for taking us through some economic data. That comes into the real core of the conversation you want to talk about is what is killing rep motivation, and that some of these things that are out in the market that aren't in our control might be killing rep motivation. And motivation to us isn't about pouring in more gas. It's about removing the sludge from the engine so that you can actually really get genuine growth out of your team. I don't always see teams that it's like, we need to add something. It's that we need to take away some things or focus on some new stuff and kind of get rid of some of the chaos and provide some clarity around where we need to go. And that's actually going to become more motivating. We'll kind of get started here with some examples, but if you want to go back into the archives, a really good episode is episode 17 from Marshmallow to Bonuses. And we talk about delayed gratification. And that episode was all about, should we do quarterly incentives or should we do monthly incentives or annual incentives and how that goes? But some of that is like bonus incentive structure is broken. And those delayed bonuses, one of the things with delayed incentives, and if we think about supplier incentives, is how long it might take to get reconciliation and be paid back. That can be incredibly demotivating and become challenging. So I think distributors, for the balance of the rest of the year, need to focus on cleaning that up faster with their reps and with their supplier partners. Because if you're contributing to do it, like, we should get that number turned around relatively quickly. And if there's any suppliers listening to this, if you could stand on your soapbox and say, you do the work, I deliver the check in 15 to 20 days, that would be incredible for a team of like, hey, this is predictable and reliable. I will stand behind, these guys will stand behind and paying me when I do this extra labor and extra work for them. Why wouldn't I focus on them more next time they're on plan?
Yep.
Right. So
yeah. I was just going to add to that. I mean, a bonus that shows up a month late is no longer a motivator, right? It's a reimbursement at that point. And by that point, once you finally get the payment, you've almost forgot what you did to earn it, right? Yep. I mean, if it's coming a month or 2 months or even sometimes 3 months later, it's like, wow, I don't even remember what I did. But hey, thanks for the check.
Thanks for the kicker. Thanks for the spiff. I'll appreciate that. Other thing that can happen too in an environment like this is we can have unclear, unrealistic goals or setting goals and shifting around, and reps might stop pushing. They might think the game is rigged, or I don't necessarily hear them talk about that the game is rigged. More of that the achievement is out of touch, like that I don't feel like I can achieve this result, so I succumb to the outcome instead of affect change on the outcome. And Ross, in that mindset of like round setting goals or shifting goals, anything else you want to add, my man?
No, I was going to double click on something you put in the notes for this week's show, and not to change the subject, but I think this is important to double click on, and we'll come back to that, which is, and again, it ties into how we kick this podcast off around the idea that if we're going to come in and say, hey, insurance on our trucks is getting more expensive, the trucks are getting more expensive, the fuel is getting more expensive, healthcare costs are going ballistic, we need more profitability, our margins are getting eroded, it's getting harder to run this business every year. Okay, now I want you to go achieve these objectives that are dilutive to your profitability, right? That are dilutive to your profitability and to your retailer. And, oh, by the way, here's your goal based on volume. We've attached it to it, or dove into this in multiple different ways, but I just want to hammer this home that, especially in light of if we're talking about the profitability of the business and the cost of the business and how hard it is to navigate, especially as a small family business, and then we turn around and measure people by goals that don't match up with that conversation. I mean, the reps are going to smell it, the sales team's going to smell it, and they're going to look at you like you're insane.
Yeah. To me, it's about extreme alignment. And when you are focusing on velocity or volume only, you miss out on the opportunity to have extreme alignment around what actually drives the business results. We were talking about this on the back half of an implementation call today, Ross, and we were chatting back and forth on Slack about some stuff. And when we have a lack of alignment around a group of people or what the business performance is versus how folks are paid or what they're focusing on, we miss out on opportunities to drive results to the bottom line. Every time we have a client that has an incredible amount of alignment from top to bottom, from the senior leadership all the way down to the reps, on balance, the closer that alignment is, the more performance they get. And that's because they're speaking the same language, they're coaching the same way, they're rowing the same direction. There's a bunch of soft things that happen that people really gravitate towards organically that are non-economic, by the way. You don't have to pay anybody extra to be aligned. Like there's just not more money to follow extreme alignment. It could actually be less in some scenarios. And in some clients, it might be less, where we're moving from a full commission structure that's all variable to a base and a at risk, budget. That could be less, but you still get more performance out of it too. Just because that extreme alignment, everybody's rowing the same way. Great episode about that was Charlie's episode as well, because he talked about how his team got aligned around it. If you want to hear from a specific client, we'll look up that episode title.
Yeah, and I think it's not just alignment in the sales team. I mean, it's if your CFO and your upper management are saying something different than your sales management, you need alignment across the upper management of the company too. What is it? What is it you're trying to achieve?
Yep.
What is it that you're trying to achieve? Exactly.
There's the T-shirt.
Makes me think of a couple packages that don't technically carry a lot of gross profit, right? Have some pretty poor margins that may be, not calling out any specific suppliers, but maybe top priority for a supplier, not only for distribution, but for displays too. And when you're compensated and top of mind as a sales rep for GP, but your senior leadership is shoving objectives or things on your throat to say, hey, we need to have this on display everywhere. This needs to be top of mind, right? Some of those mixed signals could really make a rep just throw their hands up and be like, I don't even know where to go with this, right? I mean, you're telling me to grow GP, but yet you're also telling me to shove this margin killer everywhere and take down my maybe larger GP products off of display to put this on display. So pure alignment from the top down, like Ross said, is super important.
Yep. Episode 59, Inside Missouri Eagles reorg, GP pivot and culture episode, or in culture reset. That was the one that you can hear more about from Charlie as well. Talk to me about micromanagement and control freak culture. That's a piece that we see a lot in sales prospects. And when we're talking to clients about coming on to VXP2, around getting out of the micromanagement game. Mike, in your world as a team lead, and when you're out with team leads, how do they respond to this kind of more freewheeling, being more inspire and enroll versus command and control?
It's really motivating for them. It really is. And the first thing they always say is, I'm finally able to do what makes sense for my route or for my accounts, because it's objectives and overall, it's not a one size fits all plan typically, right? We all know all of our routes are different and every account is a little bit different. So giving them the freedom and taking away the micromanagement and not feeling like a package delivery driver, right? More of a sales professional when you're in your accounts, is just saying, hey, I'm here to sell you this. It's already pre-planned. I already know what I'm going to sell you, instead of walking into the account and having the flexibility of analyzing the data, looking at it and go, I think we have a really big missed opportunity here. Mm-hmm. And here it is. And here's why. And that opportunity may not be the same for your next account. And you might not even have that same opportunity for the rest of the month, but that was the account specific opportunity that somebody didn't have to tell you to do, right? So having that freedom is huge. And on top of that, it really it allows the reps to make their own choices, which motivates them and empowers them. And it goes a very, very long way when you're thinking about it from a rep, because honestly, that's what you thought you took the job to do, was to be a sales professional, grow your route the way that you see fit and where you see opportunities, instead of just being micromanaged and being told everything to do and maybe being reprimanded when you didn't do it exactly the same way. So yeah, it's a huge weight lifted off their shoulders when they get that freedom.
And Ross, when we put in the vein of economic headwinds, business has been challenging for the first half of the year. We're almost through the first 3 quarters of the year too. By the end of this, by the end of this month, we're past H1. We're well into H2 actually. Incentive fatigue, 12 things on incentive. You've got emails up the wazoo around all these things. Trackers are coming out. Team burned out. That's probably going to accelerate into the fall as suppliers are trying to hit their numbers and close out on a yearly plan or get closer and closer to a quarterly plan. Like, we should only see incentive fatigue click up as well. That's something that is demotivating to reps as well too.
Yeah, again, I think that there's probably going to be a lot of pressure from the supplier side, especially as we head into OND, or I guess it's SOND now. I'm dating myself by calling it OND.
They're only, SOND. It's going to be MOND next.
But I think that as the pie shrinks and a lot of these larger companies have financial numbers that they have to answer to, and again, this may not be 07, 08, some of the companies decided it would be a good year to reset the clock, and they actually pulled back. And they actually tried to pull back on shipments to hit lower numbers. I don't think we're going to see that. We're too close to the end of the year. I don't think we're going to be in a major recession by the end of the year, but there's always that chance. But I think all the suppliers are going to try to push, and that desperation is going to find its way through the incentive structure. And I think as a supplier, we need to be the interference or the blocker between our suppliers and the sanity of our sales team. And I think we always say that less is more, and we need to stick to that. And as we get more suppliers and they get more vocal, I mean, it's going to be harder and harder to push back against that. And they may have more and more dollars to throw at it, just because, what else are you going to do? And in a desperate attempt to hit the numbers, because it's not, for a lot of these companies we've talked about in other podcasts, their incentive structure may be different than yours in terms of they need to hit a certain growth number for another investment round. Well, that doesn't necessarily correlate to your desire to maximize profitability. Or to keep your sales reps from having fatigue around too many conflicting objectives.
There's just a lot, just a lot going on with that and challenges. My piece with incentive fatigue is it has to still maintain some extreme alignment of the results. It has to, if the primary objective is to grow profits and grow velocity, the secondary objective of any incentive needs to be aligned with that in some way, shape, or form.
And that's a role of sales management. You've got to protect your company, and you got to protect your people.
Yep. The next piece is, and we're going to kind of tease this out now, and we're going to get into it in an upcoming episode in more detail, but feedback loops. And this, to me, this is a exchange of trust and exchange of currency back and forth. And I see a lot of managers that are negative on their team or overtly negative on their team over and over again. I think of it like a bank account. They're overdrafting their team's bank, trust bank, by continuing to be over negative. And I don't love the sandwich method. People have talked about this for years, like say something positive, say something negative, and then say something positive. My whole philosophy is you have to look at this through a long-term exchange of trust and exchange of currency back and forth. And if you can actually provide more serendipitous positive reinforcement when you say the negative, it doesn't matter if it's married with a positive at all. The only reason why the sandwich method has become so popularized is because people think they have to say something positive because they don't know if they have enough credit to pull out the negative on their bank account. And these are things that I've talked about with our reps when we were running Atlas and with other folks, that if you're overly negative right now with your team, just the casual negativity and the overdrafting of that team's trust and being overly negative can create a negative feedback loop that you are having a hard time getting out of. And you might be wondering even why your team is demotivating, all the while you're just riding their ass over and over and over again. So the morale will improve, or the beatings will continue until morale improves. And that's never been the way that I think you get humans to do things new or do things better or to change their mind in any way.
No, that's being, I mean, as a manager, then you're more of a critic than a coach.
Yeah.
Right. At that point, you're just a critic. You're not even coaching them up.
Yeah. So things that we can do better: clarify the plan. We have actual actionable data on a daily basis of this is what it is. We can stay aligned with what that plan is. We can shorten the feedback loop, as we talked about in episode 17, that were monthly feedback loops. Those are very, very powerful to be more real time. We're actually working, you two don't know this, we're actually working with a client right now, or I am working with a client right now, taking a quarterly or an annualized, you'll both love this. It's an annualized entitlement program that is basically tied to years of service. And we're looking at ways to modify that and bring that into variable and base. That this is something the company wants to contribute, but it's been a loyalty-based bonus would be the way that I would describe it. And it's an entitlement that the more years you're here, the more we get this bigger. And it just comes out once a year. And if you show up for it, you'll get it. There's no merit to it. There's no performance related to it. And the ownership group is rallied around, like, we need to move away from this entitlement structure and into paying the reps this on a monthly basis, either through their base and or through some more variable, and probably a blend of both. So we're kind of on the leading edge of working with that client through that. So I think that's fun to see some of the stuff we talk about come to life over and over again. The goal setting, Mike, and Ross, because you guys are both doing a lot of goal setting right now. Like, how any insights that you can share that's going well or getting more challenging? Are people falling more behind plan? Are they doing revisions to plan as well? Publicly traded companies do revisions to plan on a regular basis, almost quarterly. Do they publish additional new guidance? Private companies don't have that same method of the madness. They might be resistant to publishing new guidance as well. But are we seeing anybody talk about publishing new guidance, or are people staying in the realm of what they thought expectations were already?
For the most part, the clients that I work with, I mean, a few that have still a budget in mind, but maybe they've laid off the goals a little bit if that budget is still out of reach. But yeah, a lot of recalculations for yearly budgets after the first quarter, after the second quarter, probably going to be again after the third quarter, just because of it's been a really tough year, right? So still having a higher hope, but a lower expectation, just to bring in some reality to it.
Sorry, Mike, go ahead. Finish.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think that the reality of the downturn industry has locked in. In other words, I don't think there's optimistic feelings that somehow it's going to come back or come raging back. So that's made objectives or goal setting more realistic and less pessimistic when the numbers come out kind of in line with those lower expectations. That being said, a lot of our customers, and not to toot our, talk our book, but there's been excitement around the fact of being up in profitability whilst being down in volume.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, and I think I'm going to tie two things that you both said together, which is it's celebrating the good stuff, right? So it's not just coming out there and saying you guys suck and telling them they suck every day. It's we're not doing it on volume. We were down over the last 2 years, we've been down subsequent years, and they've been big downs. But you know what? We just got above zero on the profitability. So we're up, 0.1% on profitability, even though we're down 6% on volume. And that's the key thing to celebrate. Hey, you guys, turned, lemons into lemonade here, and you're to be commended. And that's where the focus has gone on a lot of these goal setting, which is, volume is what it is. What can we do on this other side? Then how can we align our objectives and incentives? Again, the alignment to match and to continue to support this and continue to create a culture where we have something to be excited about.
Mm-hmm.
When we should dig into this at some point in time in the future, but as the business gets tougher, and if as operators we might be finding more challenging to squeeze out pennies and nickels and dimes from profitability, there is a whole unhidden treasure trove of things that you can do as an owner operator that don't have any economic impact to your bottom line, but drive motivation and drive results and create stickiness with your team staying around you as well too.
Mm-hmm.
We probably go into that more as like a future episode around things that we did at Atlas, Mike, and Mike knows these well because we specifically would talk about how this is non-economic behavior, but it creates a connection with the team and with your business and with your employees and your labor force where they don't want to leave because they don't have these kinds of non-economic things connected at any other place. They're just like my flexibility. I like the autonomy. I like that I am able to come and go and that I'm not having my boss ride my ass on what I'm doing every single minute of every single day. Those are all things.
Down job market's going to do great for retention.
Well, there's that too. But I've always looked at it as I want to create this work environment where people want to stay rather than, we just need a really good recession to scare the shit out of the inmates and they won't fucking leave.
They stay because they can't leave.
That's what we need. We just gotta scare these guys back to work.
Yep. And a lot of it has to do with their bank, like what you're talking about too, right? We were all really good at making deposits in their banks, so that, hey, if your bank account is higher than your withdrawals, obviously in the positive, you're happy. You're happy at your workplace. You want to come back tomorrow, not because you want another $50 in a bonus or an objective or an incentive, but because you feel comfortable there, you trust it, right, and you love it.
So, if we did like a summary of this, things that I would be careful of, if your team is doing 3+ of these things or 3 or more of these things, we want to take a look at like managing around the motivation. Too many incentives, goals that are changing mid-month, feedback that only comes when there's a mistake or only comes in a negative form.
Yep.
Reps don't know how they're getting paid. They can't articulate back. Constant fire drills. We're not talking about strategy. We're running from crisis to crisis to crisis. That is incredibly demotivating as well. And that there's no clean finish or understanding of where I ended the month and how I got this money or these resources that were allocated to me in variable pay. If you've got any more than 2 or 3 of those going on in your operation, you're organically breeding demotivation in your team over and over again. And it's more likely chronic. And when it's chronic, that will suppress performance. If you're frustrated with performance, you can see how this like negative feedback loop kind of adds to itself in the downward spiral over and over and over and over and over. Anything else you guys want to touch on the topic?
Yeah, I mean, the only one you missed there was conflicting messaging or conflicting objective of the company.
Yeah, what's that look like, Ross, in your mind?
Yeah, so I mean, it goes back to what I said earlier. It's the CFO coming out and saying, hey, we need to improve profitability. We need to get our margins under control. We need to get our costs under control. And then your sales manager coming out and saying, hey, we need to focus on, building displays of low margin items and defending our shelf space on things that are not profitable.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you're telling me that I'm not doing my part to save the business, and then turning around telling me that I'm being measured against things that hurt the business are counter to what that guy was saying. So which guy do I listen to? Well, I'm going to listen to the guy that's paying me. So I guess I'm listening to the sales manager here. But, I think that, again, we need to be consistent in our messaging. And, again, we've been in a down industry for at least a year, if not longer. And I can hear the conversations around, again, insurance is more expensive. The gas has been more expensive. The insurance on the trucks is more expensive. The rent on the building's gone up, and and we're going like this it's, I wouldn't say it's like 50% drop off, but it's been a steady bleed across the years. So to have that messaging coming from senior leadership, ownership, CFO, and then not changing any of your actions on the sales side, to me is not a happy place to be as a rep on the street. You have to navigate those conflicting messages, or having it resonate, saying, "Yo, well, I love this family business. I want to stay here, and I don't want it to go away, and I don't want to lose my I don't want my buddies to get cut. So help me help you. So I believe what you're saying. I know it's true. So help me help you."
Yeah. It's incredibly entertaining for me to have somebody when I talk with like a sales prospect and they're like, why isn't everybody doing this? And it's like, people don't feel comfortable giving up control. Like that's one of the things is they like the command and control structure, and they feel very scared of allowing reps to make decisions in real time. And my attitude about it, or our attitude collectively, is like, how are you supposed to plan for a book that has 50, 60 suppliers and 2,000 or 3,000 SKUs? Like, how are you supposed to tell a rep what to do A, B, C every single day, start to finish, with a complex book like that? That's the piece of the puzzle around autonomy and how you actually get results out of this, is that when you teach them why, they understand the mastery of, they have tools to master their job, they have autonomy to make the decision, that they understand the why that they're supposed to happen. Dan Pink, Book Drive, be reading it. Why? Be reading it if you haven't read it yet. And like, these are all things that we love to talk about, the soft side of what we do that actually drive results, for sure. Other thing that I wanted to take your guys' temperature on is that Jim Koch from Boston Beer removed back into the CEO spot, seasoned veteran. That's like the third time he's taken over the CEO spot again, too. Like, if I can't get rid of him, well, I mean, he has all the voting shares, so like, he's not going anywhere. But they asked him around in a recent conference call, which would have been one of his quarterly calls, I think, is where this information came out of, around headwinds for the category. And I love Jim because he always does a really nice way of like labeling things, like you do, Ross, giving them a name or talking through them. And he's come up with the 3 H's of the category headwinds. And the 3 H's that he's focused on is Hispanic consumer, or it's actually reorder these. I missed it. It's in order: health messaging, alcohol is not safe, no safe level of alcohol. Hispanic consumers, you've got all the deportation and the activities that the Trump group is doing. And then hemp-derived beverages as well, or hemp-derived products in general. The one thing I think he's missing, which isn't as big of a headwind right now, because you still have to stick a needle in your gut over it, is the GLP-1s. You got to be committed to take those. But those, what do you guys think about? How does that land? Those 3 H's land on you guys?
I think it's pretty spot on. I mean, the health is obviously, I think, first on that list for obvious reasons. And it's a huge concern across the country with, I want to get healthier, whether I'm trying to lose weight or I'm just trying to be healthier, right? And usually the first thing that get cut is the either amount of alcohol you're intaking or alcohol altogether. And that's usually the first cut there to get healthy or lose weight. And that hurts us. And with all those, fat burning shots that are out there, I think that it has now, it's taken off faster, it's accelerated faster over the last few years than it ever has before, because people are dropping weight really quick and they're seeing their friends drop weight really quick. And they're like, I want to do that too. right? Without having to be dedicated to the gym every day. And unfortunately, first thing that gets cut is alcohol. The Hispanic, I think it depends. I think that definitely depends on your location. Yeah, your market and how bad that's hitting you. But there are some markets that are just getting crushed for sure. And the hemp derived package, I mean, I think that goes back to episode 1 of this podcast. When we saw that threat coming, and it's definitely cutting into it. I'm here in Florida, and I think we are 6 months into THC beverages being approved in the state. Went back and forth there for a little bit, but they're everywhere. Distribution's great, consumption is great. It's just but it's cutting into space, and you see a lot of space. Where does that come from? Right? I see it in grocery store, supermarket, chain sets. I see it obviously in independents. I see it everywhere. So that space is coming from somewhere, and that's definitely Bev Help, because it's right there in the middle of all of it.
Yeah, for sure. Ross, your take?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice being in the 3-tier system. That's my initial reaction. I mean, I think all those things are right, but all those things are opportunities if you're sitting in the distributor seat. And exactly. If you're not leaning into them and you're not giving your reps the latitude to pivot quickly, then you're missing it. And you are just falling prey to it, just like Boston Beer potentially is, right? So Hispanic, cool, shift away, right? Or shift into higher margin Hispanic, right? That's an option. And then the hemp, take it on, right? 3-tier system's perfectly aligned to be the conduit to market in a lot of cases, especially through the beverage side. All right. And so the next one, which was the health side of it, NA beers, they're on fire, right? And then the non-alcohol space in general, we've been neglecting it for years, and we've been ignoring it because either A, we think the margins are too low on a percentage basis, or takes focus away from our important suppliers. Well, what's important is, do you continue to maintain your margin and maintain your business? So again, I think that if you're in the 3-tier system, you're in the distributor seat, this is all can be mitigated. I'm sorry if you're sitting in, that seat, Cook seat. I mean, that's a tough seat to be in. And again, I mentioned before we jumped on, I mean, I briefly read that article that you sent me around the Twisted Tea numbers. I mean, it's
not good.
There's some seats that are better than us.
Get their ass whooped with a 24-ounce can of Twisted Tea again. We got to reignite that brand trend.
Well, make it a real Twisted Tea. Let's get twisted and throw some THC in it. Come on.
Ooh, I like it, Mike.
Twisted THC.
Twisted THC, man. Hell yeah. Start a brand.
Sugar-free. And make it sugar-free. Now we can have
sugar-free.
Sugar-free THC.
Ross, I love that you brought that back to like the attitude that I would have about it as well. This is one of the things I love about the way you think. It's like, cool, like bad news, chaos, opportunity. You show me chaos, I'll show you opportunity. And there's lean into better for you. The Hispanic consumer, they're still out there. That drinker is still moving. How do you actually capture those that are still there in one way, shape, or form? Or provide new products that service a new community, or you pivot away from them. And, you you can manage all of this. And the hemp business is coming, whether you like it or not. Mikey, how many podcasts have we done before Ross has come on that's like, you got to be at the table or you're going to be on the menu. Mm-hmm. And you definitely don't want to be on the menu with this, because it's just going to end badly for you.
Yep.
So dive in, man, with 2 feet, figure it out, take your shots.
I think the client that I'm with, we were talking about blue ocean opportunity, right? And I think those headwinds that you discussed, and all headwinds, they're really distracting, and they distract us to a point to where we're using all of our focus on those headwinds, and we're scrambling, and we're not focusing on new opportunity. There's other opportunity out there, right? So I think that, and like you said, Ross, with the THC beverages, but other opportunity elsewhere to don't run around in circles worrying about all of these headwinds and what it's doing. Let's find some other opportunities to take a piece of that back, and how we can do it.
Yeah. And it costs you nothing to take on these suppliers. And again, the fear is around focus. Well, if you've got a properly aligned incentive structure, let the focus fall where it may, right? And yes, there may be focus taken away from, Boston Beer maybe, and they're going to have to figure out a way to manage those headwinds and provide their position in the market and sustain it. That's not your job. Your job is to maximize the shelf space of your retailers and maximize profitability of your distributor. So, let Cook worry about those problems, and you focus on your problems, which is your market, your space, your consumer.
They're smart marketers. They'll figure it out. They have plenty of opportunity too, just as much as anybody else is.
I mean, every time I think that they can't do something, they pull another rabbit out of their ass. It's incredible. Out.
And they're the chief reinventation officers of the beverage industry. Incredible.
We just gave them a rabbit to pull out of their ass with a twist of THC. And we handed them a golden ticket with that.
Sugar-free, though. Make sure it's sugar-free.
And they have Delta 9 products in Canada, so they're ready to go. I mean, they're lined up. They're ready to pull the trigger, Boston Beer is. So, I mean, why not?
He's sitting here listening to this like, why are you giving away my secrets?
Yeah, exactly.
That's how
all up in my brain. That might be a scary place to be up in his brain. Oh, I love it. Okay. So to round out today's episode, when you are listening to this episode, we are 4 weeks out until the MBWA convention in Las Vegas, and the VXP team and the Tapped In Sales team will be there. We will be at booth 1614 in the Milano Ballroom in Monday and Tuesday with a cool setup. I love the new booth. Mikey will be building it from scratch all alone while we're out there.
I've already started it. I've been sketching up the backdrop. Yeah, got my markers out.
He's going to paint it. We're going to get him a couple buckets of paint and a little bit of wood and a couple TVs. Muhammad will drive us to the Walmart to pick up the TVs on our way in. We're going to send Ross out there.
Are you allowed to say that with a convention? Like they were picking up our own TVs? You allowed to say that?
Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah, for sure.
All right, we'll see. We're going to see if
we don't have to rent for them.
We're already Caesar's police is going to show up and be like, hey, those are not our TVs, man. You didn't rent these.
We're already paying an obnoxious amount of money to have electric, to have a plug, to have a plug-in.
We won't have internet.
But you can always pay more.
You don't want to see the Wi-Fi bill yet, Ross, if we have to buy Wi-Fi.
6 figures.
And then on Tuesday, oh my God. And then on Tuesday, which would be Tuesday, October 14th, for those of you who are going, you're keeping track of your calendars, at 8 a.m., get to bed early Monday night, because at 8 a.m., you will not want to miss our live session of Who's Wagging Who, fix broken incentives, and take back control of your sales strategy. So mark your calendars for October 12th to 14th out in Vegas. If you stay through the Brew event, it'll be through the 15th as well. We will be out there. The three of us, plus the Silver Fox himself, George, will be out there as well. Yes. If you like what we're doing, too, please continue to like, listen, subscribe, share with a friend. You have comments, you have things that you want to ask us as questions, you want us to dive into in more detail, hit us up. Our email is info@vxptech.com. That's info@vxptech.com. So you boys rock. Mikey, have fun on the road. Ross, welcome back to America. It's great to have you back as well in your new place. We'll have to see how the crow in the background crowing, how I can cut that out. Or
we might have to name him.
We might have to name him.
Well, make them the fourth member of this podcast.
Well, I had Remy on my shoulder, right? I had the crow on my shoulder.
You had Remy at one point, yes.
I can bring Remy back.
I love it. Well, you guys rock, and cheers, everybody.
Cheers.